Good morning on page 277. Oh, good day. We're in Eretz Yisrael. Good day. 277. And we're in the middle of discussing the relationship between the Nefesh Shalikis and the Nefesh Habahamis through the Nefesh Hasichlis. Good morning, Moshe. So let's continue inside. It's about 8-9 lines from the top of the page on 277. And we learned, the last idea that we spoke about, and we learned was that the Yerida is Tzair Chaliyah. So now we're towards the end of the line where it says, V'tama davarhu. The Tama davar, the reason why the process requires that the Nefesh Hasichlis be the middle broker between the Nefesh Elikis and the Nefesh Habamis. And why we say that the Yerida, that the descent of the Nefesh Elikis into the Nefesh Habamis is really a benefit for it. Because outwardly it looks like a degradation. You know, it's lowering itself. It's not doing something that it really is happy about. So the Rebbe now brings a concept in the Kabbalah to explain that. Tama davarhu, the reason is the Sheidish HaNefesh Habamis who mehatoyu shekodim elatikim. The source of the Nefesh Habamis is from toyu that precedes tikkun. In other words, toyu is the world of chaos, the world of void. Tikkun is the world of correction and perfection, tikkun. It says in Kabbalah, in the Sifrei Kabbalah, that when Hashem created the world first, in concept, He created the world of Tohu. Good morning, Moshe. And only good morning. And only afterwards did He create Tikkun. In other words, when it says in Bereshis bara Elokim as a Shemayim as Oretz, v'Oretz oisa soyu v'voyu. Right? So at the initial creation, what did you have? Tohu v'voyu, void and chaos. That was initially what you had. Then the Torah proceeds by telling us all the different things that were created in the 6 days of creation, which brought normalcy, tikkun, to the world. But what was there originally? Tohu v'voyu. So the Kabbalah understands from that this isn't just it happens to be that it happened this way, and really it should be the other way. The idea is that initially what we're learning, what the Kabbalah says is that the Hashem wanted and wants that there should be first a state of chaos, and from there you proceed to tikkun. Why? Because the state of chaos has something that is special, that tikkun not only repairs it, but benefits from it through the repair. So in order to correct something, you have to have what to correct. So therefore, what is there to correct? Tohu v'voyu, chaos. That's the hine. So that is in the language of the Kabbalists. Yes.
Very question. Why is it called tohu v'voyu? Like what's the? Because I see he writes tohu, right? So
yeah.
Tohu v'voyu. What I never understood that. Those two summations.
Well, Rashi, it begins with Rashi. Rashi on the spot tells us, the difference between Tohu v'voyu in many Sfarim it's discussed, but overall it means one idea, but you could break it up between kind of quality and quantity, inner and outer. There's the inner chaos, there's the outer chaos, so it's not just a repetition of a word, but later on, when you take out a Chumash, an art scroll, whatever, and look up, you'll see commentaries on that, I believe. Now he goes back to the Chazal. In other words, the Rebbe now, what is he doing? He's going to show us that this isn't just a concept in Kabbalah, and for that some would say, you have to be a mystic, and I'm not a mystic, so it doesn't apply to me. But the Rebbe says the Chazal also support it. How did Hashem create the Kibriyos Shalom means the style of creation. What is the style? First the world was dark, and only afterwards Hashem said, Yehi or, let there be light. So here too, what do we see? The Chazal say that the first idea that there was darkness, and only afterwards light came to be. So we see from the Gemara as well that this manner of first having toyu, chaos, and then afterwards tikkun, olam hatoyu and olam hatikkun, is also the way things were created in creation in the physical world. And that's the Chazal, that's not Kabbalah. So the Rebbe says, we see, whether it be from Kabbalah, whether it be from the Chazal, that this is the way the Eibishter wanted the world to be. Chashecha u'nehira, says the Rebbe, darkness and light, heim toyu v'tikkun. They are the same ideas as toyu, void, chaos, v'tikkun, and correction. The toyu chayshech, because toyu is darkness, right? When a person is in a chaotic state, they're in darkness. They don't know where to turn. They don't know where to go. They're totally lost. V'tikkun, when they are in a corrected, repaired state, meaning they know where things belong, A is A and B is B, and things are organized and all of that. Hu'ayr, that's light. What does it mean it's light? It's bright. You know where things are. You put away your pencil, the next day you know where you put your pencil. You know exactly where this bill is filed. You know what I'm saying? That whole idea of being organized is tikkun. Yes, someone who lacks that, from that perspective, is in a chaotic state of toyu. And there are plenty of people who live their life that way, for whatever reason. And it's a toyu experience. Now, does it mean that it's always wrong? No. Some people thrive on being unorganized. And they can, and if they're too organized, they become OCD. You know, just like, you have OCD in the normal fashion, where everything has to be exactly in its place. Sometimes you can have a reverse OCD experience, where you're being too organized makes you too much sugar. So, but overall, toyu is chayshech. What I just said now is the exception to the rule. The rule is that toyu is chayshech, and tikkun is or. Well, close I have to between toyu and tikkun. What is the general difference between the two? Hu shebetoyu hu ribi oyer umiyat hakelim. It says in Kabbalah the following: there's a concept called oyres v'kelim, lights, energies, and vessels and recipients. There's an energy and it needs to be received. So Kabbalah says the energy is called the or, and the keli for the or is called the kelim. The vessel for the or is called kelim. The place, the mindset in which the energy finds an abode, finds a place where it can express itself, is called a keli. So what happened in Toyu? In Toyu, there was ribui oyer. There was an abundance of energy. It was too much. It was too much. And what happens, and there was very little, very few kalim. In other words, the or was so powerful, both quality and quantity-wise, that the kalim that were there, it says in Kabbalah, is what's called shviras HaKalim, the shattering of the vessels. And Nebuch, sometimes in Achman Litzlan, you have someone who is very studied and very learned and doesn't sleep and doesn't eat, and then you have a nervous breakdown. I knew a few people like that here in the community. They, were geniuses. They were learning and they were looking to master Shas, but the body couldn't tolerate not sleeping and not eating, for hours on end, etc. Just giving an example. There are others who did it. And then you could point to others who slept 3-4 hours, a night and ate little, and then they were around the clock learning, and they're fine today. I'm not saying that it's always that way, or whatever it is, too intense, and if you don't have the kalim, if you don't have the place in which to put that intensity, you could flip out. You have a breakdown. So what happened in... Yeah.
Do you think that's why a lot of we have a big problem to kids going off to Dera? it's too much? You don't think that's the reason?
No, I mean, I don't see it that way. In most communities, maybe if you told me, in the Aralach of Toldosarin in Yerushalayim, the Meir Shorim, if you found that to be, and I don't know, a stat that they have a large fallout, and they're so, fafrumt, fanatical in certain areas. It could lead to a vacating of everything, and you do. I'm not saying you don't have any. I mean, that's this whole now Rash. You probably heard about this Netflix movie that came out, Unorthodox, where everyone's talking about it. Maybe it's only the Chabad community because they have something good to talk about and to deal with, which is, because the movie sheds a very negative light on Hasidic people, especially the Satmar and all that. And the point being that, being too intense is a problem. And so what I'm saying to you is, I acknowledge what you're saying. It has been an issue, but by now that's not the main reason for the fallout. It used to be much more in New Square, Satmar, but today they have realized that the pressure. I mean, I know from people in the community, they allow their kids who are not religious to live with them. Okay, maybe they live in the basement, maybe they live in a side room, maybe they put on a yarmulke and they don't smoke in the house and all that. They don't bring home the girlfriend and all that. But so they've eased up. I'm talking about overall. So I wouldn't say that's the reason. I don't think that's the reason. In a way, I say unfortunately. Now, why do I say unfortunately? In order to do tshuva, anyone, something has to bother you. If nothing bothers you, you ain't doing tshuva. Okay? I'm sorry. It's the exception to the rule. You can study any Baal tshuva. And so there is that wild Baal tshuva that I always tell you about, being chased on La Brea Avenue, because that's an exception. That's a wild story. But then you have people who just, they realized, what am I doing? I'm a Jew. You know what I'm saying? And normally they went back to themselves. But nevertheless, there was a place in them that was very unhappy, that was very sad, that was very troubled, very bothered. And this is true, forget about just the Baal Teshuvah Kipshutai. The FFB, to do tshuva, the same thing. when you wake up in the morning and you look at yourself and you say, where am I? What am I doing? Another day of eating and sleeping and gabbing and wasting my time. What am I? And you say, I'm sick and tired of this. Let me do something that's for Hashem, that's higher. So when you're bothered, one second, Hillel. When you're bothered inside, you move. Yes, Hillel.
I was listening earlier today to a podcast with Manis Friedman and a fellow who he had Makarev, who was like Bob Dylan's best friend growing up. And so it's fascinating. It's sort of fascinating.
Do you remember the name? Do you remember the name?
He recently wrote a book.
I know him. I know him. Yeah.
Yeah. He recently wrote a book. So he told a very funny story just on the subject of being Baal Tshuva. He said that once in the Chabad shul in Santa Monica, on the Eilah of Yom Kippur, Bob Dylan walked in to Ne'ilah at the end of the day, and he was wearing a like cowboy boots and a hoodie, and so and the rabbi, who knew who he was, gave him sicha for Ne'ilah. So Balabatim in the shul said, Rabbi, I was kind of hurt when you when you gave this fella, this guy who walked in, a psicha, because he says, but then I thought, how great you are. You're giving a homeless Jew psicha of Neila and Yom Kippur. It was a very
Oh, that is hysterical. Well, that was a great story.
Anyway, so let's back to the Maamar. So we're learning here about this concept of Toyu being Koidim Tikkun. Because that's the way, basically, Darkei Shalaylam. That's the successful way of making us tick and thrive and continue and do what we need to, is by having first the void and only afterwards the tikkun. That's what he says. Let's continue. So he says, and in Toyu, the energy was too vast, was too much. It was too much. So it led to a shattering of the vessels. Over tikkun, conversely, in the world, in the arena of tikkun, it's just the opposite. Humiyata or there's a minimal amount of energy, v'ribuya kalim, and a large amount of kalim. So there we have more kalim, less or. In other words, the thrill, the exhilaration is not there as much, but what's there more, Baruch, is the keli, the normalcy. Right? So therefore, tikkun, so that's why it's tikkun. Because you could correct something when you have a structure, when you have a framework. To have a framework, you need to have energy, and you need to have the positive energy in which the energy is then filtered and processed. And the filter and process level and experience overtakes and kind of it conceals the energy. So the thrill, and we see this too, by the way, where a person gets very inspired, so the very, that feeling of being so inspired, let me do something, right? That's the or, that's the toyu. And after a while it wanes, and you're back to your same old self, right? You're back to tikkun. But tikkun is where it's at. Because if you have a thrill, and you cannot process the thrill into your normal life, then you really had nothing. It's here today and gone tomorrow. If there's no permanence, there's nothing. We can be inspired ourselves, but if we don't transmit it to our children and grandchildren for the future generations, then we missed the boat. Okay? It doesn't mean to say they have to be just like us. That's not the point. But there's certain basics of values and in connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we as parents must endeavor to take the or and transmit it to the kalim. Because the kalim stage, compared to the or, is a dull stage. It's not inspiring. It's not exciting. Every day you get up, you dress, you daven, you go to shul, you learn, you go to work, you come home, and you find amongst people and amongst character, some people need to have the thrill, the high. Some people are very comfortable being, I'm not going to use the word that I shouldn't use, but I will use it, boring. and the truth is, I don't, because, I said that, being normal and being organized is boring. For someone who is a type A personality, it's very boring. But for someone who's a type B and who's normal, that's the best thing. So it's not about, but every stage of experience, There's the thrill, the up, the high, and then there's the balance. And what we have to do is find a synthesis that works for us to merge the thrill, the tayu, with the tikkun. But at the end of the day, you must have the tikkun. If you haven't mastered the tikkun, the tayu will only be a fleeting experience. And yes, during that time, that fleeting experience is gewaldig. Yes, Hillel.
I've also seen in Sforim that there are certain souls from the Olam Tohu, and that they're considered very high souls, and they often have very great challenges, which is one of the explanations why Yitzchak responded to Esav in the way he did. That Esav was a soul from Olam HaTohu, and he had those great kochos, the potential, and if only he could bring them in and channel them.
Right.
So.
No, there is that idea, and I think I told you earlier this year. I saw this principal walk into a classroom, and there was this one rambunctious kid who was making noise and all the things, and he comes over to me, says, "You see this pencil? Would you like this pencil?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Well, what do you need a pencil for?" "I want to have a set of drums to bang away." He says, "Let me teach you how to play drums with a pencil." And he teaches him how to play drums on the desk, and he became a world's drummer later in life. He took an energy. He saw an energy there, and he didn't squash it. He didn't squash it. Don't squash the energy. The energy is valuable. So you're right, Hillel. There are, when we say about souls of Olam HaTohu, Esav was such a soul, but and it says, "Well, there'll be a time when there'll be an elevation." But again, until that period, Esav brought a lot of problems, but at the same time, what?
To this day.
Till this day. Right? But b'shoy shorshoi, there is good, so you have to get to that good, and we know that when Mashiach will come, that good will be experienced. So the same is true in our lives. But you do see and you do find someone, and you say, why is this person always can't rest, can't be at peace, is always looking, it could be that, his neshama is more from Olam HaTohu, and that's what's being, that's what he's calling for. So remember, listen to his call and find, yes, Moshe. You wanted to say something? Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to ask a question connected to this. And you tell me if this, maybe I'm off base, maybe this is...
Go ahead.
But, you're talking about different neshamas, and I know people like in Ish Kodesh, just as an example. It's like I feel sometimes like I'm on such a different wavelength. Like, for example, I know a guy, he thrives... He goes early Shabbos, right? Makes early Shabbos, right? Friday night. He davens nates. We have a new nates minyan in Eish Kodesh, Nusach Sfard. So he davens nates. Then he goes, and Shabbos day, he davens Mincha Gedola, right? Like at 1:15. Right? It's like, I don't even see the guy anymore. Right? Right? Like, I don't even see, like, our schedules are totally, But the thing is that this guy, and there's other people that say like him in a similar way. It's like he thrives on being in shul, like punt, right, at these like early hours, and Gemara, like halacha, and I know this particular person. This particular person, he actually does learn some Chasidus, but I guess my question is that when I think about like this person or people like that, like it is so not my schedule, okay? Like when I connect with them. So my question just is, but when I at least see this person, he is so like, everything is like by the book, so to speak, So I guess my question is, when you're speaking about different, neshamas, when you're speaking about different neshamas, the source of the neshama, does this type of person, is he like an example of like tikkun?
Yeah.
Or is that?
Yeah, it sounds like.
What's that?
It sounds like he it sounds like he's very much a tikkun type of neshama. That's what it sounds like. Like you said, he gets a high from being on time. And there's another thing that you didn't mention that might be worth thinking about, is that if he doesn't do it this way, he'll be a mess.
Yeah. For sure.
Okay, so that needs to be appreciated, that where he's coming from is this rigidity, and the rigidity by him is who he is. That's who he is. So yes, he is demonstrative of more of a tikkun person, in which the toyu is really not felt and seen. The Rebbe told Rabbi Kunin in 1983 or so, when he was in great debt, $17 million in debt, I believe, and he came one Shabbos and Sunday, the Rebbe, when he would come in to Mincha or so, he would give out, tzedakah before he came to Ashrei, and he handed, I think, Rabbi Kunin a nickel or a dime, I forget, and he quoted the verse in the Haftarah of that previous Shabbos, I believe, or the upcoming Shabbos, where with the Elisha, Kalim reikim al tamiti, empty vessels, empty jugs. I don't want to see empty jugs. So the Rebbe was telling Kunin, I want your jugs of money to fill up so that you can pay the debt. That was the implication. And the rest is history, because, after that, I don't know how long it took, but he was in the middle of a very big dispute over a will with, I forget, it was Weinberg or Weintraub, not Weinberg, a wealthy man actually from Brooklyn, the JCC on Bay Parkway, Yoni, if you ever were in that part of town, on Bay Parkway in 75th Street or so. It's a very large building. It takes up the entire block. It's like the YMHA, the JCC of Bensonhurst, it's called. It's the neighborhood that borders Borough Park. And it has the family name. So it's a wealthy name. And I knew some relatives over the years. Anyway, so his wife was in the hospital, and Jerry Weintraub, who was the MC for years of the Chabad Telethon in California, he called Kunin and he said, Rabbi Kunin, there's a lady who's not well in the hospital. Go visit her. It'll be a mitzvah, and B, you never know. It's a good thing for you. So he went, and he went once, twice. Anyway, she liked him, and she wrote a will because she was dying. And in the will, she left, I think she was divorced from her husband, and she got $120 million. So 40 she left for the Heart Association, 40 for Chabad, and 40 for another organization, I don't recall. Well, of course, the ex-husband, contested it, and it was a major court case with lawyers, everyone, and it was, in Chabad, Rabbi Kunin, sent his people to Hawaii, because I think the Hilton in Hawaii, Maui or Kauai, whatever, he owned it, whatever. So they had to document all the properties. It was several years of work, and he didn't give up. And the lawyers, Grossman and others, they were fighting for it. Anyway, and that Sunday when the Rebbe gave him, and shortly thereafter, the Rebbe told him to settle, because they offered a settlement. And he got, I think, 50%, or 20 or $21 million out of the 40. And he went around with Yoel Edelson. Shmuel's not here, but Shmuel we know who he is. He was his accountant at the Chabad house. And they were driving in a car from house to house, paying everyone back every dime. Rabbi Kunin had a register of everyone he took money from, he loaned money from, and he gave everyone back, paid off the 70 million, had $3-4 million left. He gave the yeshiva $1 million, the girls' school, and a few other things, and he was back to zero again. But why do I say this? Because so the Rebbe said, the Rebbe told him that Sunday. Before that, in 1983, the Rebbe spoke about the whole concept of the Rebbe Marash, the Chatchila Rebbe, right? Which means over the top. So over the top means you don't have money, you still give out free tefillin. You still feed everybody. And that's the way Chabad House was in the 70s. No one charged for tefillin. No one charged for mezuzahs. Are you crazy? When I was a teenager involved in this type of work, we didn't charge anybody. And we didn't ask anyone to pay us. We went to camp. Who had the thought of a counselor being paid? What? You know, they paid for your trip to come from New York to California to work in the day camp. I was there. I was in Kansas City, Missouri. The idea of asking for money wasn't even on our radar.
Radar.
Yeah, but as the years went on, the bills mounted and to $17 million. I'm not saying it was all from tefillin, okay? It was from mortgages on properties and as well. But the bottom line is, the Rebbe said, the Rebbe said that on that Farbrengen, Yud Gimel Tishrei, 1982, I believe, the Rebbe said it has to be Eidos the Toyu, the lights, the vessels, the energy has to be Toyu inspired, Toyu quality, but they need to be in Kalim. Hold on. You see what happened? We had a Toyo experience. My camera fell down. It have to be in Kalim of Tikkun. The energy, the koyach, the passion has to be Toyo. But you have to be able to experience it in normalcy in Tikkun. And normalcy means paying your bills and not being in debt where they want to foreclose on you and it's a chilul Hashem and everyone is it's a nightmare. And then he changed. Rabbi Kunin, who was known the symbol of just doing things lechatchila ribber and not worrying about the money, although believe me, he fundraised very heavily for years, probably still does, but the idea of bringing it down, the Rebbe said, is so important. So here we're learning about this concept, and Shmuel and Moshe mentions, this idea, but you can't change people. You can just suggest, Moshe. You know what I'm saying? And if you really care, you will find that in his rigidity and in his schedule and all that, he has his type of toyu. You know what I'm saying? It's not your type of toyu and my type of toyu, but it's his type of toyu. And it needs to be looked at. Yes, Moshe Myers, yes.
I was going to say, in line with what Moshe was saying, and you're saying, maybe Hillel could confirm this, like people have sometimes a natural rhythm, an internal time clock or rhythm, Some of us are more night people, day people. So I don't know if Chasidus talks about this or mentions, like you say, when you say tikkun, first of all, I know tikkun's a correction, but when you're saying that, what do you mean exactly? You're saying that that's his tikkun to have that kind of schedule?
No.
For him, his tikkun?
No, we don't mean here his tikkun. We don't mean that. Tikkun means, normalcy, a domain, an area of where everything has a place, organized. This goes here, this goes there. In not just in everything in your life, there's tikkun. There, everything fits in. Everything's settled. So, for example, staying up at night and waking up late, and again, if that's what you want to make your life, and you're able to do that, so for you it's a tikkun. But the average person, for them, it's a toyu, because they got to get up in the morning and do what they need to do. You understand? But yet you find some people who thrive working at night and not during the day. But we're talking generally speaking. By probably most individuals, they sleep at night and they work during the day. They're active during the day. So the opposite for those people is toyu, and tikkun is. But we don't mean it's a tikkun for his neshama. That's not what we're talking about here. Let's continue a little bit more inside, okay? So he says, yeah. So the idea of the abundance of light, of energy of Toyu, and the minimal amount of tikkun of kelim, umiyat ha'oyer the tikkun. I'm sorry, umiyat ha'oyer the tikkun. Baruch, you see what he says? Not umiyat ha'oyer the tikkun. And when the light, the energy of tikkun is minimal, it's not that it's the same energy. It's not that it's the same energy, just that in Toyu, it's an abundance. And in Tikkun, it's minimal. Rather, it's not that way. Rather, the quality of energy is very different. The Oiras, the Toyu, Oiras Nailim. The energy of Toyu were great energies, that there's no comparison to K'mayonis the Tikkun. So here, listen to this point. What he's saying here is very important. The quality of energy in the Toyu experience is totally different than the quality of energy in the Tikkun experience. The energy is different. Before we spoke about the vessels. Are there vessels? Are they strong enough to receive the energy? Here we're talking about the quality of energy. I don't know, but I think that the type A and type B personality is a good example for this. The type A personality, and whatever he does and wherever he is or she is, it's type A. So from whether they're sleeping on their bed, it's a type A sleeping on the bed. And you'll notice in their sleep, type A. When they're playing soccer, it's a type A playing soccer. And when the davening, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, you'll see a type A davening. Because that's who they are. That's the energy that's driving them. Then there is the tikkun. You'll see that in everything, in all the three examples that I gave. So what he's saying is here, it's not just that you can handle it, you can't handle it. Is it too much or too little? It's not. It begins with the energy, with the koyach. What type of koyach and energy do you have? And that results in the type of experience you have and the way you behave and the way you act and who you are. In addition to that, there's also the keli. How do I filter it? How do I process that? But that's a secondary thing to the energies. That's what he says. Let's continue. It says, on the first day of creation, there was an energy, a light that was created that Adam Arishan gazed at. And when he looked at this, when he meditated, looked at means he meditated on this experience, this energy, guess what? He saw from one end of the world to the other end of the world. Of the two worlds of Alma Discasia, of Alma Disgalia. He saw the revealed worlds, he saw the hidden worlds, he saw everything. There's a difference between that to L'Oir HaShemesh, to the light of the sun, the Achshav of now, She'odim Rayabay, Mila Yoser. The light of the sun allows you to see a mile or more. Mila Yoser, right? Are you going to compare the light that Adam Arishan looked at and he was able to see not a mile or more, but from one end of the world to the other end of the world? What's the difference? Not just because this is Adam and compared to us. No, it's because the energy, the quality of the light that was given to the world when Adam looked at the light compared to the sunlight that we look is a different quality. The programming of the sun's light is limited to a mile or more. The programming of the light that Adam Arishan looked at was limitless. From one end to the other end. We'll stop here. V'tachlis hakavana, and Mitzvah Hashem, tomorrow we will continue learning. Any questions? Anything final? Anyone? Seid gesund. Have a great day. Hatzlacha. Hatzlacha and
Good night,
everything.
everybody.
Bye-bye.